Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, August 8th, 2025, and the time is 9:04. This is Veronica Bolchik, Chair of the Contract Review Committee and also Chair of Council for Human Services. First, I'd like to establish quorum with CRC. So when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Because this meeting is being held in a hybrid fashion, all votes will be done by roll call. So for CRC, Joanna Roach.
Here.
John Balash.
Here.
Linda Williams. I see her, but I'm not sure if she's... We'll come back to Linda. She probably has just stepped away for a second. Lee Tesser.
Here.
And joining us as a member of CRC is Suzanne Keating from Council for Human Services. Sue Minthinen had requested to step aside and to appoint someone else, and Suzanne Keating graciously stepped forward. So thank you. And I also want to thank Sue for her dedication to this committee in the past, and we look forward to seeing her. She's still with CHS. And then myself, Veronica Bolchik. So we have a quorum for CRC. On staff, we have Jericho Melee.
Yes, in attendance.
And Alexandra Richards.
Here.
And we do have a guest today, Mr. Brian Turbot, the Director of Finance for the town of Nantucket. So he is our guest and I guess officially a member of the public also. So I'm now going to jump over to CHS, and I don't have a quorum. So what I'm going to do is just announce the members of CHS that are here, and they will be functioning as members of the public today. So I have Tara Restieri.
Here.
And I also have Deborah Gunnemond.
Here.
Deborah joined CHS in July, so this is her second official meeting that we've had. So welcome.
Thank you.
So just to set up some ground rules, we had invited, we were having a joint meeting with both, but since we don't have, so members of CHS who are here will be members of the public. We have asked Brian to join us today in our work with CRC over the past year or so. A number of questions have come up in trying to improve our process and also just improve the service that we provide for the community. And Joanna Roach, who also sits on the Finance Committee, at our last meeting suggested that it may be a good idea or appropriate to invite Brian to come to our meeting to give us an overview on just the procurement process, but then specifically, we've had some questions of making changes to the grant process. And before we got too far down the road, we want to ask Brian to guide us along the way. Brian, we appreciate your time today, and I apologize. We had put together some questions, and you were to get that earlier, but you were just handed, and we don't expect you to. You may have all the answers for us, but if not, we would ask that you just get back to us when you can on those. So, Mr. Turbot, can I?
May I take a brief
yes.
tiny second just to check something technical?
Mm-hmm.
Linda, can you hear us?
I've been able to hear you all along. Can you hear me?
Now we can. Okay, so Linda, I'm just going to establish you as part of the quorum here. So Linda Williams.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All righty. So if we can move on to Brian, if we can turn the floor over to you and just a brief overview, and then we will entertain questions from CRC and then members of the public.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So admittedly, I haven't been involved a lot in the development of the RFP that goes out to everyone for the request for proposals. But typically, I think this runs pretty similar to every process for request for proposals that we do with evaluative criteria. They're sent out to, or they're made known on the procurement page of the town's website. And all of the interested parties submit and respond to the questions. And then the CRC goes through and does evaluations and interviews and makes recommendations. I probably would need to sit with Jericho to just kind of go through that RFP a little bit and the evaluative criteria, because as I said, admittedly, I haven't really looked at it in a few years, but from what I recall when it was being done in previous discussions with Jericho, it's not anything different than any other town body does when we're trying to procure a service and want to use evaluative criteria. I think it might be, the only difference is that we might have a little bit more leeway with this, because generally, I think, well, like these, we have a little bit more latitude because we're dealing primarily with nonprofits in terms of the criteria or the process, but we've always tried to keep this aligned in as much of a fashion or similar of a fashion as we do for every other procurement that we do, so that we maintain the consistency across departments and across our procurements. But I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know if you had specific questions you wanted me to address. I apologize for that, Madam Chair, but I know there was a couple here, but and I can address those first, I think. What was the first question, Jericho?
And then the first one was basically, can we put a cap on, can we communicate to applicants that we award no more than a certain amount?
Yeah, I don't actually, in my opinion, as finance director, but as also chief procurement officer, I think in this instance, we could put in there that there's like individual awards are capped at whatever amount that you wanted. And I think you could even do it in a way that would cap it for particular groups of activities or functions, so that if substance abuse was extremely, I'm just picking one, by the way, I don't have any, however you guys want to do it, I'm sure we can make work. But if substance abuse was one that was particularly of particular focus for the committee, I think you could say that those are capped at 100,000, and then other ones could be capped at 50. I think there's great latitude for you in how you want to do that, but I do think you could cap the awards in some manner or fashion. And I think it would be appropriate to communicate that as part of the RFP, so that the respondents know in advance what that cap is. And it may actually help get more refined proposals, which may make it easier for the group as well, because the respondents are going to know going in what their limitations are, and it may actually refine their proposals around whatever programs or services that they want to offer. So it might actually be of a benefit and streamline and help your process a little bit more.
Okay.
And I think make it a little bit easier make it easier for the contract review committee to actually focus on the programs and, for lack of a better term, the likelihood of successful outcomes with the program, if everybody knows going in what those dollar limitations are.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. That is very much what we were thinking, because it's a great effort for applicants to put together a grant proposal.
Mhm.
And, we've experienced in the past where just can I back up a second? Last fall, when we started the RFP proposal for fiscal year 26, we conducted a bidders conference information session. And at that point, we did not put any limits. And there were questions from some new applicants that said, well, how much should I be asking for? And of course, my answer was ask what you need. But without a cap, we wound up with some applications that were more than half of the amount
Right.
of money that we had. And, we just looked and said, oh my gosh, there's no way that we can do that. So going into it, I think it would be better to have those kind of guidelines. And also we know that we have a limited amount of funding, and we want to be able to answer as many needs as we possibly can. Any comments from CRC committee?
Me. Brian, do you think it's also possible for us to exclude capital projects on the upfront
Yes.
of this? Because we've had,
Yes.
last year, that was something that came through and we knew as a committee that that wasn't appropriate for this money, but it wasn't stated anywhere.
I do think it's appropriate. I think you can state it and require it to be, you can probably state it and bold it, but you could also make it an evaluative criteria if you want as well. But I think it's perfectly reasonable to state in the RFP body itself that capital is not something that that your intention is not to fund capital projects with this money. You could go so far as to put, if a proposal comes in with a capital project or capital funding request, that it'll be rejected. It could be a minimum criteria. There's ways to put it in, to call those out, to make it easier for the committee. We could make it a minimum criteria that there's no request for capital funding in the proposal. Or you could make it evaluative criteria, or you could state very clearly if there is any, it'll be rejected. So I do believe that would be acceptable, an acceptable way, notation in the RFP and requirement. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then we would have, and I'll follow up with this at a later time, but there's an accepted definition for capital
Yeah,
expense?
we could do that.
Okay. All right. Any other comments?
Hey, Brian, I have a question. What is the procurement standard? I'm new to the committee. Is it always evaluative, price and other factors, or is there some other procurement standard?
Well, there's a couple. I mean, you can do a request for quotes, but request for quotes is generally the rule of award is the most responsive and responsible bidder offering the lowest price.
Mhm.
So I think in this instance, with the acknowledged need of and variety of services that the money is trying to be allocated and awarded to, the best process is to do a request for proposal and rank them on evaluative criteria. I think it produces any of the other ones, and since some awards would be over 50,000, you could do an invitation for bid, but again, the rule of award is typically and always the most responsible bidder offering the lowest price. So I don't think that any of the other bidding options offer an ability to really define or evaluate the programs on a set of criteria that will produce the best result possible for the allocation that's at hand.
Thank you. Is there a monetary threshold for which procurement method?
Yeah, so typically you cannot use a request for proposal unless the cost is going to be more than 50,000. But we generally have modeled this in a way that allows us to do it because as I said, since this all has to go to nonprofits, or 501c3 exemptions, it's my opinion that it gives us some latitude in how we develop that, and we have typically always developed it even in allocating awards for less than 50,000, and I still think that that's appropriate and acceptable.
Thanks.
Yeah, we just for some background information, in the past history, we have had a small of an award as $5,000 and upward to just under maybe 175,000. And we typically oh gosh, anywhere between a dozen and maybe 17 different organizations have been awarded grants during a cycle. So it really is a broad range.
And in general, these are non-duplicative services. So unlike some of the other procurement processes, you're not having multiple agencies bidding to provide a single service. You have a bunch of non-overlapping things. So it's a slightly different in some intents from other procurement processes I've been in. But I think the core part of it works quite well. It gives us the flexibility to actually award directly to match the need of a program. And it's not as cumbersome as some other procurement processes I've seen. The other question, and Joanne, I think this comes to your what we're calling capacity building versus seed funding. I know we've been using that terminology internally, but Brian has not, so it might be good to kind of explain what we mean on that point.
Sure. So what I was trying to, when we were deciding the grants, what I really was looking at is like seed money. I know that you're gonna understand all this. It's like seed money is what is required to start a program. Capacity building is money that allows it is an infusion of capital into their operations, right? Over a continued period of time to allow them to continue the services. So there's another way to look at that too. So like if you're getting like in the grant world, if you apply for a grant, you can apply for like a 3-year run of say $30,000, and that would be called a capacity building grant. And then after that, you wouldn't get it anymore, right? So I think that, one of the thoughts that I've had since I've been on the committee for a number of years is how do we more effectively deploy the money, right? And so if people are, I don't want to name any names of organizations, but there are organizations who come to us who are clearly looking for operational support. And instead of giving them, say, one-time infusions of X amount of money, is it possible for us to say, we'd like to look at you getting $25,000 or $30,000 for 3 years in a row, right? So that they can count on it in their budget. That is one part of the question, I think. And I think the second part of the question is there is a difference between capacity building and seed money. And again, in how we explain this in the grants, because if you look at the people we give the grants to, I would say there's 3 or 4 organizations that we're giving operational money to, right? It offsets their costs, right, of running the business. And for the years that I've been on the committee, oftentimes they'll come and they'll try to explain to us that it's underwriting a service or a program, but it's obvious that they're counting on this budget in their operation, in this money in their operational budget. And then there are other people who come to us and say, I want to do this specific program. It costs $50,000. Here are the expenses. Here's what we predict to be the results.
So I guess I would answer it this way. I think it's going to be difficult, unlike private foundations who Joanna could really award an amount, say for 2 or 3 years or whatever, okay, for us as a municipality to do it, okay, strictly because the legislative body is the body responsible for appropriating funds on a yearly basis, okay? And I'm not suggesting that the town wouldn't support any of this, but I'm suggesting that because every one of these grants is subject to funding availability, okay? If you make a 3-year commitment, it would automatically reduce what you have on a go-forward basis, but every grant would need to be written subject to appropriations for the subsequent years of this. And in my mind, I'm not sure that if I was leading an organization that had one of those from the town, that I would be planning on it in the other years, knowing that it is subject to the legislative body approval. I think that, again, I don't know that
I follow.
town meeting wouldn't actually support it. I don't know that there's a way for us to do that, to give a really good comfort level to an organization for 3 years. I mean, that's just an initial thought. It doesn't mean that we can't do it as long as they're clear that the funding may or may not exist in the out years.
So then let me ask this question a different way. So if we have, say, $500,000 to give away, roughly, are we able on the upfront to say half of it is gonna go to capacity building requests and
Mhm.
half of it is gonna go to seed or program requests?
I'm not, I'm not speaking exactly for town administration, but I would suggest to you that I don't think that we have a problem in how you want to allocate the money. And if the committee wanted to say 50% of the money is going to seed money to uplift a program that you've wanted to get off the ground, and 50% of the allocation is gonna go to support ongoing programs, and then I think that that would be perfectly fine.
Okay,
I don't think that I think our goal in the allocation is for the committee to come up and develop with the RFP to identify and fund what they believe are the best
Right.
proposals to deliver the results that everybody thinks need to be gained.
right. And I think that if we were able to do that, it would eliminate requiring some of these organizations to come up with proposals that
Mhm.
are unnecessarily unnecessary and then require defending in a way that when you look at the financials, we know that this is an underwrite to their operations.
I mean, I think the other way that you could do it, and again, I mean, I know that, and maybe Jericho struggles with this, but some of the proposals that we're funding, I think it's also hard to measure the outcomes
Yeah.
because I think it's just the nature of some of the programs that are being done. And I mean, one of the ways to get at that, probably Joanna, so that they're not coming back every year because you know that it's really underlyingly funding the operation itself, is to develop metrics that can better measure the outcomes, right? Because then you would
Yeah.
have, I think the committee as a whole would have a better basis for
Yeah.
an argument to not fund something if, and I don't know how you do that, but I just think that that's also one of the ways to
Mhm.
kind of get at what you're thinking about or asking the question around.
You've got it. And this is something that we've been talking about and working on.
Yes.
I don't have the answer on how to do it, but
But you understand the
Right.
direction we're trying to go in.
I do, and I think it's a great direction and a good goal to maximize the effectiveness of the dollars.
Okay.
And we've currently been working on internal metrics, things like we were looking at people served per dollar, a couple of other organizational metrics that are not outcome based. In human services, tracking outcomes is a multi-year process, and you need to start with a baseline. We're getting a baseline this year with the needs assessment, so that's gonna help with the outcome tracking afterwards. And then one of Rocky's, the new Health and Human Services Director's big thing is like metricization of outcomes, and we're gonna get into human services once we have a moment to. But that is not gonna be, that's a process, that's a multi-year process, just so that so that we're not, the metrics are really hard and they have to be evolving alongside the programming to a certain extent.
Okay.
Um,
Theoretically, and I'm trying to assimilate all this information. Can we have two different grant applications, one for capacity and one for seed or startup? And it would be clear in a definition in the grant of who would be appropriate for the capital or capacity and for seed. So
I do, and I would actually go further that I think that if this is a path that the committee as a whole wants to go down, that you identify it early, and I, to be honest with you, think that it would be two separate RFPs, and the community and a organization would be able to, with proper definition and a clear definition, would be able to figure out which application that they would be submitting for review and potential award from. But I do think you can do it that way, yes.
okay.
And I think it would actually make it easier if you, let's just use the 650 for the discussion here, and if you said 50% to each, I think it would make it your entire process easier if it was clearly defined that if you're trying to get a program off the ground, you respond to RFP A. If it's a program that's been in existence, and it's capacity maintenance, it's RFPB, and I think it would make your entire process a little bit better and more streamlined, because you would be able to have meetings. I would suggest meetings solely focused on one procurement and
Mhm.
working through, and then other meetings working through the other one. So I think it would actually make your entire process a little bit smoother and more streamlined for you and for the applicants.
Okay, I see Joanna is
Yay!
jumping for joy.
Yes.
This has been
I've also-
multiple frustrations.
I
over the
promise we
years.
haven't talked before this meeting, Joanna.
We
We've talked about this before.
We did not.
I have a hand up from Linda.
Okay, Linda?
I'm diametrically opposed to that
Oh, boy.
because just simply put, because if the need is in one area more than the other area, we've just shut them off. And if we only have a few applicants that don't even exceed the amount that we have in each bracket here, we can't take that money and put it over there. So if too many people apply for one and not enough for the other, we've shut off that money from being able to be allocated. I'm diametrically opposed to this.
I actually don't believe you could, because I think that we could structure the RFPs in a way that says if there's not enough applicants in one, that the unused money can be used for the other for it, because this is really an internal thing. It's not a town administration saying we're allocating a percentage of this to one and to the other, and town meeting votes this as one entire line lump sum number. So I think you could. I think that the allocation split or this discussion is only internal, and I don't believe there would be a problem if we noted in the RFPs themselves that if there were not enough applicants in one group or the other, that the funding can be used for the other RFP. I don't think there's a problem with that. Now,
Okay.
you may have other philosophical reasons why not to, Linda, but from a procedural standpoint, I don't think that would be a hindrance.
Also, to track back to something that was said earlier, I've been through this quite a few years ago, since I've been to 53 town meetings in a row. I believe there was an issue, Brian, at some point before you got here, that we couldn't, when we're talking about granting something for multiple years. I think there was a question, you sort of alluded to it, where you can't encumber a future town meeting vote.
Right.
Right.
And that's come up before, which is why I'm, philosophically it might make sense, but I'm not in favor of doing that.
Just briefly, Linda, that's slightly separate issue from the allocation thing. The reason we were limited last year with some allocations is because they were drawn from different funding sources, and the
Right.
funding source was limited solely to one use. If we have a single undifferentiated amount of money, we can separate that into whatever buckets we want, as long as it's in conformance with if it follows the RFP.
No, my comment was related to when we were talking about, like Joanna brought up, committing 25 grand, let's say, for 3 years in a row. You can't do that. You can't encumber a future town meeting vote. And
We
that's,
agree on that.
I think Brian alluded to the fact that it's got to be voted on every year.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe we cannot do a 3-year commitment, but it's a capacity grant for this year and you apply again next year, because their needs may change too. So that would not have us voting over multiple years and committing to something that we have no idea if that will even be there. I know that, again, theoretically, we ran into this last year with the substance misuse. We did not have appropriate applicants enough for the entire funding that was potential,
Right.
and we could not shift it over. I know that substance abuse is still a great need on the island, but we know that the funding source is different. Can we combine? I guess I'm trying to say, if we run into that situation again, that if we have not enough in substance misuse, but we have more in other, would we be able to cross those lines? But again, it's theoretical because we don't know what we're going to be.
Yeah, the substance abuse prevention stabilization fund that we created has two distinct funding sources, 50% of the marijuana local option tax. And we are currently putting the opioid settlement monies into that. I don't believe, based on the wording of that particular stabilization fund that we created, and the more stringent rules around the use of the opioid settlement funds,
Mhm.
that we could commingle those and put them into the general allocation. I think it would be, we would run I think we would have the most problems, specifically around the small amounts that we're getting from the opioid settlements, if we were to use them outside of the four corners of the box that, of guidelines that have been distributed and are constantly being revised by the state. And we have to report on that annually, so I would advise against that consideration.
Okay, thank you. That
Um,
clarifies.
I have a hand up from Deborah.
Yes, maybe once again, this is very theoretical and probably has already been answered, but would it be possible to award the grant once, but pay out over multiple tranches? So you have a slightly larger grant, let's say, reading through the paperwork, you've obviously been doing this, and you really know when people are looking for operational funding more than they are seed money or capacity. And you look at it and you think to yourself, well, I know that they are actually needing $15,000 a year, for example. But we can't give them $15,000 for 3 years because that's going to run foul of certain things. Would it be possible then to extrapolate that out and say, okay, we're going to give them a grant this year of $45,000, but we're actually going to pay it out in tranches. We're not paying it out all at $45,000 all in 1 year.
Theoretically, I don't think that would be a problem, with the exception that 45,000 would have to come from the amount that town meeting would be allocating in the first year in order to pay the subsequent years. So it would, in theory, reduce the amount available to award to everyone else, but then I think there might be one other theoretical stumbling block, is that most of these grants are on a 1-year basis, so
Okay.
it may be difficult to actually do that. I won't say it's impossible, but it would be a very big change, and could, depending on the committee and the review, could end up basically taking 650,000 and awarding it to one or two places to pay out over multiple years, and I'm not sure that that's a policy direction that the committee would want to go in, because it would limit the amount that you're giving to everyone else just to do that.
Yeah.
I think it would be difficult.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions,
And
comments?
just as a heads up, we are running towards time. We are at 37 past. And I think, Brennan, you had to be out of quarter past.
Yeah, I gotta get back for a
Okay.
real estate meeting, unfortunately, but I am certainly available to come to another meeting as you guys go through this process. And if you decide to split or do two RFPs, one for seed and one for capacity, I'm certainly available to come and talk through the evaluative criteria, the entire RFP. If the committee wants any input, my staff, my deputy procurement officer is great with RFPs too, so we have plenty of staff that are more than willing to help. And I'm certainly willing to come back and answer any more questions. And if anybody has any, they can send them to Jericho, and I can get them a response as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. I think this was a very good use of time, and as we have been working this process, we are constantly saying what if and what if, but we figured we best to just hear it from you to give us some guidelines, and so we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. And anytime, I'm happy to come back if you have more questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I realized that we jumped right into it and we did not have acceptance of the agenda, which was part of our agenda, but I assume we can just move on from there.
Madam Chair, did the other group ever get a quorum?
No, they're here as members of the public.
Okay, because is there more than 3 of them here?
Not that are also not also members of this body. The
right,
third
Okay.
member is Suzanne, who's a member of CRC, so we shouldn't have, it shouldn't be a concern.
right.
Okay.
We have two members and then Suzanne and I are on both, so we just have two members. Right. Thank you for that. So any comments now that Brian has left the room? Joanna, I saw just utter glee.
Well, I think this is just gonna make this easier for people. And for us, so, and I respect Linda's point about having leftover money, so I'm glad that he clarified that.
Mhm.
So as long as it's coming from the same funding source, we can essentially partition it any way we want to. We can do the operational versus seed, we can do sector specific totals if we'd
Yeah.
like to. As long as it's all from that one central fund that's being allocated.
Right, and
Sorry, go ahead.
and these organizations will self-select, right? We're not assigning them a category, they'll self-select, and that will be a lot easier for them.
I saw from Suzanne and then also from Linda.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I really liked the clarity coming into the CRC for the first time of this happening with the proposals and being able to break it down. I think it's great.
If eventually, Suzanne, we're gonna be using the same portal that we did for the
For the needs assessment,
yeah, that's been a requirement that I've been trying to slow roll because it would be a significant shock to applicants to have to go through the centralized portal.
mhm.
The nonprofit community is primarily focused on delivering whatever service they're trying to do. So it's a significant burden on them to have to introduce, educate, and use a new application system in a short timeline. So I'm kind of holding back from us pushing everything directly into that procurement platform. Eventually, though, we will have to start using it.
And Jericho, we're not going to use that for fiscal
Not this year,
27.
no,
Okay.
no.
So we have another year reprieve, and maybe if we get the wrinkles taken out, it'll be easier then to transfer it over. Linda?
Minimum necessary change.
I am still opposed. What happens if you have one of our, being quite familiar with the people that have applied, this is, I've been on this for decades. What happens if they're in both categories? That's confusing to them. And what happens if
What do you
they
mean both?
have clarity themselves, or does that limit them from applying for the other one, or they're confused, or they get parts of one and parts of the other? I don't
Well-
see this as a boon, frankly. And maybe operationally, but I don't see this, let's say it put yourself in an applicant's position. I don't see it as a boon.
Well, can I jump in here? If we say, there's two parts of this. Can someone apply for two different grants? One for a capacity, and say if they have a brand new program that they want to start, they apply in the other area.
Yes, we do that already.
I think it's limiting. I think it's terribly limiting for them. I don't think it's going to be as easy as you think it is for the people that are applying.
Linda,
It may make our lives easier, but I don't see it easier for these guys, frankly,
Lin-
because I think they may say, well, I can't do it this year because I don't fit anywhere.
Linda, we already do this with substance misuse. There's two separate grant processes. We would just do that again.
Now, substance misuse, I understand that thoroughly because that was confusing enough for a while. But I'll continue to argue this as we move along. So there you go.
Can we
Oh,
talk about,
We still haven't accepted the agenda, have we?
no.
Okay, we should do that.
Okay. Can I have a roll call or a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second?
Second,
Okay. So Linda,
Aye.
Lee,
aye.
John,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
and myself, I. So we have an agenda. So we can move on.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry about that.
All right. Can we talk about limiting the dollar amount on a grant?
No. Yeah, that's my opinion, no. Now, are you talking about, let's say, the guys that come from the vineyard, limiting them to something? They're probably
No.
the smallest group.
Oh, no,
That's not,
no, I'm talking about someone, asking for $300,000. Well, we know that that's not going to happen, but is it fair to say that any organization gets no more than $100,000?
No, because let's say the need is, let's say it's all based on how many people apply. Because you said it yourself earlier. Sometimes we've had 18, sometimes we've had 10. During the pandemic, we had less because they simply didn't have the manpower to put their stuff together. Because the CPC went to example from 18 to like 5 during the pandemic. So it depends on how many people apply versus how much money we have. And we always tell them we do the same thing at CPC. We've got a 4 million to grant. Ask for what you need, and then we'll pick out from your pro forma. We pick out things we can't pay for and things we can consider paying for.
so
I
Linda,
can't tell Fair Winds you can't ask for what they want. If it's 105,000, they can only ask for 100.
Okay.
I mean, I have problems with that, limitations.
Would it
Linda-
help though if, and we know that last year we did not know how much money we had going into the grant, but hopefully this year we will, so we can make a statement. There is theoretically $650,000 for all grants. So we can suggest that, of course, only apply for what you need, but also be cognizant that it's going to be awarded to multiple people. So in so many words, say don't apply for half of it because it's not going to happen.
Right. Well, I think the guys that are coming in, we only had what, 2 or 3, maybe 2 new ones this year. The guys that come in pretty much know they're not getting the entire thing. They know that we have to spread it out among the 12 or 13, which is about the average lately. They know that. The only caveat you can do, because we do this at CPC, is that we have so much money. We have so many applicants, people applying for in the need base. We understand the need is extreme, but you're not going to get necessarily everything that you ask for. So be prepared kind of statement. Does that make sense?
that's very bad for program development.
I know it is, but we're talking about limiting the amount of money people can ask for.
Which allows them to do a tighter, more constrained request, knowing what they're gonna get. Like if you develop a program for $150,000 and you're told you have $75,000 to do that program, that's not good.
Well, they accept it. It's not good, but they accept it
Yeah.
because they know they're not getting the whole thing. So I'm sort of caught betwixt and between as to what to tell them not to ask for versus we're telling them what to ask for.
Speaking to Jericho's point, I think having a cap allows to say that if you're applying for, if your RFP is, whether it's operational or seed money, here's how much we can give out. And I think it does make it more concise for them. And it gives them a guideline of what to work with.
Yeah,
Well, they already know that they're not getting it all because they never do.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have a
Joanne?
hand from Joanna, sorry.
I mean, I think that over the past 4 or 5 years, we've consistently given the same amount of money to the same top 4 organizations. We know that they need it for operational support. We have grilled them extensively on their programs and looked at how this offsets the salaries. And we have put them through, I think, to kind of tease out that they were looking for operational support versus a program, right? Because in the years that I've been on this committee, not 1 year have they been able to fully execute the program or hire the number of people they said they were going to hire in any of the cases. So I feel like this makes it so much easier for them to say, I'm going to ask for $100,000. I pretty much know I can count on getting that every year. And that's what I can allocate for in my budget, as opposed to coming in and saying to us, I'm going to hire 17 people. They're going to get paid this much. We're going to hope to see this people. And then the next year around, they were only able to hire 10 people and they only saw this many people. And then it's sort of disappointing for everyone. And I think that, you know, the seed money allows new organizations to come in and ask for help getting off the ground, which is kind of, I think, what we're supposed to be doing. I don't mind helping the organizations that need the operational support, but I think that limiting them to 100,000, or I don't care if it's 110, or whatever we decide, I think is completely reasonable in the approach to also the work we're asking them to do.
But are we then saying, committing that they're gonna get the 100 grand every year, or could they
No,
get to 80
we
and 70
can't.
because of how many people are asking for money?
We can't commit to that. I mean, we
I
cannot.
know.
Yeah,
it's
so
just this 1 year, and that's all that we can make a recommendation for. So we're not committing for 3 years or however long. It's just for the year that the grant is awarded, and that's it. And as Brian alluded to, we could have 2 different grants coming from an organization. So they can apply for a capacity grant that's limited at theoretically $100,000. And if they have a new, unique, or different program, they can apply in the other category for seed.
But if we limit it to 100, are they expecting to get the 100?
No more than 100, maybe it gets
Oh, yeah,
that.
You gotta flex that word, yeah.
right.
no, you just say maximum award for this grant process is $100,000.
That
We
doesn't
can
mean they're
still
gonna get
propose
that.
less than that in order to separate the money out. But
Yeah.
the idea is for their request to match as closely to their need as possible, because you want to fund you want them to give you I'm using the term honest, but you want to give them an accurate assessment of what they believe the cost to deliver a particular program is, or to maintain a particular period of operations, instead of knowing they're not going to get the full amount, so they add that bid in order to get what they actually need to run the program. Like,
Then I would use the word may.
what do you mean?
May be limited to 100,000.
No, you have to say
Limited.
will not exceed. That's the phrase. I think that's
Okay.
the RFP phrase.
You could just do a not to exceed number, right?
Yeah.
Makes
Right.
Yeah.
sense.
I'm looking down the road with a quarterly report on a capacity grant. Because typically we're looking at how many clients were served in that time period, the expense, the outcome. What would a quarterly report look like for a capacity grant? And what would we ask them to show us on a quarterly report?
I mean, do you want me to, I can take a stab
Yes.
at that.
Yes, please.
I think you're wanting to see their year-to-date financial statements to make sure that their projected budgets are in line with, their actuals are in line with their projected budgets.
Okay.
And then from an operational point of view, you would want to track, like, because that's an internal metric of how well functioning the business is. The other part of it is, are they getting outcomes that they want to? So you could pick some core metrics, some core reportable facts about their primary operation, wait time, number of clients, so over a given period. And then we need to be looking at, and this may be more CHS needs assessment down the road type thing, but then we need to be looking at a thing that they don't report that tells us the outcome. You know, that's the kind of thing that's a longer term process to see if there's actual impact on the problems that the funding is going towards. But yeah, you would internal metrics plus some financials.
I mean, Jericho, these organizations are using this money to offset payroll. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what they're doing. So if we're tracking how many people they're employing year over year, we can see how our dollars are helping them to offset their payroll.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is that? It's like, what's the percentage of positions that are unfilled? Like, what did you start the year with? How many positions were unfilled at the start of the year? Where are you in the first quarter? Where are you in the second quarter? Right? And this is what, this is the problem with every business on Nantucket is payroll costs, because the cost of living here is so significant, and because of the housing shortage, they have to do extra things. And so if we're deploying this money in the human services sector to offset payroll, we are doing our job. It's a very important thing.
Mhm.
How about hand from Linda?
Are we asking them on a quarterly basis to give us their business financials that have nothing to do with our grant? Do you know what kind of time that takes for them to do a new report every quarter? I'm more interested in the efficacy of whatever we just paid for. Period. I don't want their financials for whatever's over there, over there, over there, that has nothing whatsoever to do with our grant. I'm interested in getting the quarterlies that say how effective was our grant money for that quarter. Now, whether it's how many people or whether they were able to hire staff or whatever. But I don't think we have any right to ask them for a full-fledged 501c3 filing every quarter to
No,
see how the
Linda,
rest of the business is doing. Is that
that's
what we're
not what no, we're asking them for a P&L, right? It's a quick report. It's a report out of QuickBooks, and we go through this when we analyze their grant request anyway. This is easy.
But why are we asking for something that has nothing to do with our grant?
But it does. It has everything to do with our grant. That's exactly how we determine if the grant is working or not. And they have to give us this when they apply for the grant anyway.
You're missing what I'm saying then, because I'm asking if we've got a large organization like let's Fairwinds,
Sure.
and they have other stuff going on. It had nothing to do with us, nothing to do with the grant, nothing to do with the program or the people that were giving the money to hire to run a program. I'm interested in what's going on with the program that we paid for. I don't care what they're doing elsewhere with the visiting psychiatrist and any of the rest of that stuff. I don't care personally. I want to know
Sorry.
that our money is doing something positive.
But
So-
a capacity grant
Yeah.
will allow them to use the money they've gotten for whatever their needs are, whether it's paying salaries, et cetera. So it does matter. It does matter.
So
You're,
Linda,
you're
this,
still not getting what I'm saying. If we go,
No.
let's go back to the vineyard one. I don't want to know what they're doing on the vineyard.
yeah,
I want to know that they're servicing 10 kids here.
Right.
That's a program grant, not a capacity building grant, and that is a very different set of criteria.
Right.
so Linda, this is about the possibility of what if we did these capacity grants, and let's just call these capacity grants to minimize confusion for the moment. If we did issue these capacity grants, what would they have to report? Because the capacity grants are to the organization and its operations, not for a specific program. That's the split that we're proposing now as being a possibility in coming years.
Well, I reserve my right to object.
I mean, I from the human services side, I want to build in ways to determine the efficacy of organizations and operations, and I need to gauge population, like outcomes on a population level. That is for human services and behavioral health, like it's a dissertation to determine the efficacy of one program, like a literal PhD dissertation. So in lieu of being able to do that kind of research on an ongoing basis, we would need to look at other metrics to fund organizations that we know are providing needed services. And this operational versus seed or program money is where we're trying to figure out, we're trying to determine if it's a good idea to split the funding into these potential categories, knowing that it's not exclusive funding like the substance misuse and the human services grant was last year.
I mean, I just want to say this is a huge investment, right? Because if we're going to use Fairwinds as an example, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've given Fairwinds in excess of $600,000, right? And it has largely gone to offset their staff costs and payroll and hiring people for programs that are very important. But I would rather just call it what it is and say that it's a capacity building opportunity for them than say it's a program grant, because it lets them apply the money against their payroll. This is, I think, a completely reasonable and straightforward way to handle those types of large businesses on Nantucket who need that help. I mean, there's also others who fall into this category.
Right. We could look at the NIFRA and the food pantry, because the money that they get basically
Offset
towards
salary.
salaries. Some of it may get put toward expenses for transportation for food or whatever, but it basically is salaries and they're operational. So it's not a new program that they have. And I think we try to put the square peg in the round hole when we've tried to force them to tell us
Right,
it has to
exactly.
be a new program. And well, it's not a new program. And
Right.
so it makes sense in my mind.
No. No, and I mean, yes, it was very hard as a new member of this committee to understand the difference between a program and who we were supporting operationally. And we kept trying to get them to define the program. And to your point, Veronica, many times they were unable, but they critically needed the money,
Right.
right, for the service to exist on Nantucket.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't know if we're at the
We're at 10
point
o'clock.
then, but if
Yeah.
we're at the point, would we want to have a motion to have two different grant streams?
Is that on the agenda for a vote on
Well,
that? I don't
you-
think so.
You don't
It-
need to have.
We-
You could have a motion to explore the possibility or determine the nature of the RFP. That doesn't, you don't need to have the vote delineated on there.
No, but you have to have what you're gonna vote on the
Well,
agenda. You
On
don't
the
have to be
agenda,
over attentive about this stuff.
the agenda has questions regarding Town of Nantucket Human Service Grants funding and procedures. So
I'll make a motion to explore this.
So
That's what you
very
just-
quickly, some logistical issues. We have about a month and a half before we're gonna be releasing the application for this.
Right,
We are, it is not. My suspicion on us announcing a large, massive change like this close to when we're going to be releasing the RFP is that it would cause significant alarm in the nonprofit community. Like, we
Yep.
need like a 6-month rollout period for this kind of thing. And we need to have several public events to outline what the guidelines are. We should really, my suggestion would be that after this year, maybe the motion is that pending this allocation cycle, we have this separated out that gives us time to work out all the various implications and the structures for it. And that for FY 27,
7, yeah.
for FY 27, we adopt this separation.
But that's why I make the motion not to do that now. Yes, to explore that.
It is entirely possible for us to have this implemented before this time cycle. I think that it would be chaotic, though.
Yep.
Given past years when we've had relatively small changes in procedures. Because this requires you writing this requires a completely new application, like from the submitters. And it would require a very different set of justification. It would require us to develop an entire new rubric that we want to evaluate on. And we need to include the rubric in the RFP, so the rubric needs to be completely done and vetted and thought through before we release it. It's doable, but it would be very close, and it would result in most likely delays in releasing the RFP from when we were hoping to do it. I'm just saying that purely from a logistical point of view.
That's why I said I'd make a motion to explore it for the next fiscal year. That's my motion.
So right now, the RFP that will be prepared and released in September to late September is for fiscal year 27.
Sorry, it'll be for 2028. My apologies. I would suggest that we motion, much like we motioned to adopt the rubric a few years ago.
Yep.
I think we should motion to have fiscal year 28 conform to the idea of the seed versus operational capacity. That would
Fine, you want
be,
me to change my motion to that
Well,
then?
I just want to see what people's, like, where the committee feels about that before we get to motion.
All right, then I'll withdraw the motion, but I am not ready to put this into effect this fall. For the reasons that you just stated.
I'm a little bit, I know that it's work, et cetera, but I think that ultimately, we need to do it. I think it's a good thing that we should be doing, and I would push to get it done for this fiscal year coming up because our time frame is so far out.
Right.
Thinking that, this is for fiscal year 28, like it's.
So
Well, I'm gonna vote against it, but
I
I
mean,
have to,
listen,
if you want a quorum, I've got to leave. I have a dentist appointment.
yeah, I have to go too. But listen, here's my question. This is for you, Jericho.
Yes.
Can't we just use the application that we have now and call one of them for program applications and call the other one for capacity grant applications? And, I think the capacity grant application one might have to be changed slightly, but the program one doesn't have to be changed at all.
So program one wouldn't be as much of a problem. We do have to, and I need to work with like a couple of people, including John, to revise the rubric in that before that goes out. That's not gonna be a huge problem, but the applicant education process is where I think the complexity and difficulty is gonna be, especially on that operational grant.
So,
The-
I mean,
But-
I think that could be really simplified if we called in the 4 places that we give more than $100,000 to, and we had a meeting with them, right? I mean, we're talking about 4 or 5 players, right? So I think that, and frankly, I think they're going to be relieved because they do not have to now invent something to come before the committee with.
I think in that context, yes, I think it's doable for this year cycle. What I'll need to do is I'll need to work with Brian to make sure that I'm gonna need to lean on him for this particular type of grant because I've never done this. What we've done for the last 4 years is try and move the application process as close to programming as we can. So I'll have to unlearn some stuff and work through with Brian, and then we'll need I'll need help with the rubric.
Right.
That's the one thing I'm not super comfortable with on the operational grant, because I don't know how you would evaluate this along the lines of the previous rubrics that I've written.
Okay.
Other than that, I think we could potentially do that. We just need to be very clear in communicating out to the non-big ticket items, quote unquote, what's going on, so that there's not confusion around the people who are looking at these larger numbers or the larger organizations applying for it and feeling like they're either being left out, feeling like there is bias towards particular individuals, or that we're intervening in the application process to get desired ends in a way that is outside of our scope. That's all. I think this is a big deal for a lot of the agencies on the island that are like the locally operated ones that are professional about delivering their service, but not about the nonprofit services. So it will require management, and it will require time to address those concerns in a way that leads to good outcomes. But yeah, I think in that context, I think with direct communication to the organizations we expect to apply for operational funding, I think it is doable for fiscal year 27.
Also, because everybody has to go, so
Yeah.
I'm happy to, I make a motion to adopt 2 types of grant requests, operational or capacity funding and program for fiscal year 27.
Okay. Do we have a second on
In
that?
that motion.
Okay. By roll call, Suzanne,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
John,
Nay.
All right, Lee,
Aye.
Linda,
No,
and myself, aye. So what is the count on that?
With 2, 3, 4, 2.
You two voted no, I didn't, but I'll be yes.
5.
Everyone but Lee and Joanna.
Right. So the motion,
John and I, my mistake.
so motion passes.
It does.
Thank you.
So, just to clarify, that is to explore, so that I have my marching orders. That is to develop 2 separate RFPs, one intended for, and we'll call it capacity grants, and one for programming grants. There's no allocation of what that split is to be, or what any caps or anything like that. It is just to split that out. So we will have 3 grant processes concurrently. We will have a substance misuse grant, we will have a programming grant from the Human Services funding amount, and we will have a capacity grant from the Human Services funding amount.
Correct.
Okay.
We discussed publishing the overall budget. Does everyone think that's still a good idea?
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. Which leads to the next item that is on the agenda, which is the letter that was written and to be submitted to the town manager and to select board that would request our funding level for fiscal year 27 and to announce that we want to develop a mechanism for an increase going forth.
Mhm.
Everyone should have a copy of that letter.
And I can share the screen if anyone does not, if it's necessary.
And I reread that letter last night in preparation for this, and I don't think that anything we've discussed necessarily changes the nature of this letter. But I'd open that for discussion.
I think the letter is great.
Okay.
Do you want
Tara?
Oh.
Tara, your hand is up? No? All right.
Victoria, do you want a motion?
Yes, I do.
I move that we submit the letter attached to the agenda to the select board and the town manager, as written.
Can I have a second?
Second?
All right. So by call, Suzanne,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Linda,
I,
myself, I. So we have supported that letter. Now, this also is under the pen of Council for Human Services. And we're going to have to talk about a meeting with them that we can get their approval on this
We-
also, and then it can be released.
Did
So
we? Apologies, Madam Chair. Did we get a vote including subsequent changes at the last CHS? I forget.
we did not have our meeting on Thursday.
That's
We didn't
right.
have a quorum. So no, it didn't happen. So we're going to have to talk about maybe a sooner meeting with them as opposed to at the end of the month that would be. So we'll get that going. With just CRC right now, our next meeting, because I think that we're going to have lots to do before September. So if people can look at their calendars.
Do we need to meet next Friday? At 9? Or the 22nd?
Okay.
I don't.
So it would be the 15th or the 22nd.
I don't think I'll have anything substantial for you by next Friday in
Okay.
terms of like information back or, you know, updates to rubrics or anything.
So let's shoot for the 22nd then.
Jericho, do you have prior rubrics that can be circulated, or can I look at them online?
Absolutely. We have one at the HHS page, but I'll send out, I'll have Lexi, if you don't mind sending out last year's human services application. That includes the rubric and that will need some additional development. John also volunteered to help tweak the rubric language. John, if you just want to like look over the one and send your suggestions, I'll try and integrate them in. But I would appreciate the help on the substance misuse grant, specifically the rubric around applicability and use. And then I'm sure that the human services grant rubric needs some tweaking as well.
Right.
Great, thanks.
I have to go, everybody. I'm sorry, but thank you for a good.
August 22nd, 9
Got
a.m.
it, 9 a.m. I'll be there.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
Veronica.
Thank you. Right. Linda, do you need to go also? I'm not sure if she's still with us. So
Still
August 20.
here,
Okay.
but if I leave, you don't have a quorum to shut the meeting down, so we need to do it now.
Okay. August 22nd at 9 a.m. is our next meeting. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
All right. By roll call, Suzanne?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
John?
aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Myself? So thank you very much. Think it was a beneficial meeting this morning. Good use of time. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. All
Thank
right, the
you.
meeting is closed.
Eric,
Yeah, John.
would you resend me the rubric that we're now working with? I'm not sure I've got it. And
I will send it.
whatever
I
you
will-
want me to work on with you, I just need to have it.
I
newly-
will send. Oh, apologies, John. I will send it out to all members CHS and CRC. And we can solicit feedback on the rubric from everyone. And we'll have the whole application just so people know what it is that we have to modify before the release date.
Okay. While I do have Suzanne and Tara present for CHS, I'm going to suggest that maybe we meet on either the 14th or the 21st, as opposed to the 28th this month. If that date is good for you, then we can also just send out a poll for everyone. Would either of you prefer one date over the other? So it's either next Thursday, the 14th, or the 21st.
Oh, and members of CRC, the CRC meeting is closed. So if you guys have something to be, sorry.
The 21st is better for me. I'm likely gonna be on a plane on the 14th.
Okay,
I can do either, but I don't
Right.
mind the 21st at all.
okay. Alrighty, so let's see if we can send out a message that our meeting will be on the 21st as opposed to the 28th at noon. And an agenda will follow for that, but at least that people can get that on their calendar. All right.
I
So-
just sent you an email, by the way, because there's a typo on in the letter.
Oh,
Thank you.
It says
Thank you.
Council for Human Service,
oh,
and that just as an FYI.
Just one
you.
service.
okay. Appreciate it.
Exactly, one service.
All righty. Very good. Well, thank you,
Alright.
everyone. I think having Brian here really helped tremendously. It's always good, and I use these sayings, and I don't mean it disrespectfully, but it's good to get it from the horse's mouth.
Oh, I trust the finance director over my own intuitions about finance very much more.
Anyway, have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye
Bye.
now.
But